All right, guys. So here we go. Notes should be out. So notes on the right, green on the left. Thank you, those of you who have it in your binder. All right, so we're going to continue with probability. Yesterday we talked about simple events. Okay, so it's kind of the starting of probability and what you guys, I'm sure, saw in elementary school. Today, though, we're going to talk about something called, we're sticking with probability, but we're talking about compound events. Okay, so here's what compound events are. Okay, compound events, everyone? Compound events. So a compound event is basically an event consisting of two or more simple events. An event consisting of two or more simple events. So in your little box off to your right, go and write down spinning a 6 and then rolling a 2. So for example, you have a number cube and as well as a spinner. And so the only way you win is if you spin a 6 on the spinner and then grab the number cube and roll a 2. That's the only way you win. You have to do it just like that. Okay? You can spin a 6 but roll a 3, you lose. Okay? So that is what compound events are. It's basically two simple events but put together in the same game for you to be able to win or have a favorable outcome. Okay? All right, our next word, our phrase is sample space. Everyone? Sample space. All right, so the book says it's the set of all possible outcomes of a probability experiment. The set of all possible outcomes of a probability experiment. So yesterday, right, we had a spinner, and if it had like numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on them, I mean, that was the sample space, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the spinner. Okay, those were all the possible outcomes that you could spin. Okay, this, of course, with compound events, it gets a little more challenging, so we're going to talk about that. All right, so here we go. Kind of going along with what I said, but maybe with a number cube, rolling a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, the sample space would be those numbers, because those are all the different things you can roll. All the different outcomes, all the possible outcomes. Okay. Our next word, tree diagram, everyone. Tree diagram. All right, so here's what a tree diagram is. It's a diagram used to show the sample space. So what it is a strategy to find the sample space, because when we're talking about compound events, finding the sample space is a little more challenging. Okay, so we're going to use a diagram to be able to pull that off. Okay, so in little box here, it's a way of showing all possible outcomes with compound events. Way of showing all possible outcomes with compound events. It's almost restating the actual definition. Okay, so let's get in to our examples. All right, so go ahead, and the nice thing about DocCam is I can actually, if it's a worksheet, I can actually work right off the worksheet with you guys. Okay, just a little reminder again, extra practice side, skills practice, so just like yesterday. Okay? Now, we talked about this yesterday, and with probability, directions are very important because it could be giving you different things than what your brain is thinking, so a different task. All right, so make sure you're reading the directions each time. All right, because the thing may look the same as another problem, but you're supposed to do something different with it. So don't forget that. Okay. So go ahead and let's start on the extra practice side. Okay. Let's take a look at number 3. Okay. Now, here's the thing with number 3. Okay, you're going to notice that on some of this worksheet there are games. On others, they're not games. It's not like you're gonna win. Okay. For example, this one you're putting a sandwich together. All right. So that's not a game, obviously, right? It's not fun anyway. So, all right. So number 3 says we are making a sandwich from white, wheat, or rye bread, cheddar or Swiss cheese, and ham, turkey, or roast beef. Okay, so really quickly, okay, now that I know what the question says, let's double check the directions. It says, for each situation, find the sample space. Remember, sample space, what we just talked about in our vocab, sample space is all of the different possible outcomes. That's what we're trying to find. So basically, it's saying all of the possible sandwiches we can make. Okay, now, on number 3, step 1, okay, is on all of these, you're going to try to find out there are different factors, or in this case, there are different things that are making up the sandwich, different types of items. Okay, so you're going to want to ID the different types. Okay, and I'm not saying every single little thing. I'm saying, here's what I'm saying. The very first thing is white, wheat, or rye bread. Okay, that's one, is the type of bread. The next one is cheddar or Swiss cheese. Cheese is the second factor. All right, and the third factor is, of course, the type of meat. Ham, turkey, or roast beef. So you have to be able to, and that's more mental math. You have to see it when you read it, use some reading comprehension, and realize that there are 3 different types of things we're looking at here to build this sandwich. Okay, so here is what we're going to do. After I've identified them like that, step 2 is I'm going to choose one. I'm just going to choose one type, and in this case, I'm going to talk about the bread. Okay, so in this particular problem, I'm going to just list out the types of bread. So now listen, I'm okay with you abbreviating some of these with letters, okay, or maybe a little more than one letter, because you're going to do a lot of writing with these. That's why you don't have very many problems on the homework. This takes a lot of writing. Okay, so now with white, I don't want to put W because we have wheat. I don't even want to put WH because white and wheat both start with WH. So maybe the white, I put WHI for white bread, WHE for wheat bread, and I'll just put, and this is simple, we'll just put R for rye. Okay, now what I want you to do is make sure when you write it, if you notice, I didn't write them right next to each other, because you're going to see, kind of knowing how a tree branches out, we're going to have some branches here. Okay, so we're going to have to use some space up. So I kind of spread them out, white, wheat, and rye bread. Okay, now what we can call step 3, okay, is step 3 is take the next factor here. In this case, it doesn't have to be the very next one in the little paragraph here, or the little sentence, but I'm going to use the next one. It's a little easier that way. Cheddar or Swiss cheese. So here's what I'm going to do. I can have white bread. I can have 2 different types of cheese with the white bread. I can have cheddar, so I'll put a C, and I can have Swiss. You see that? Now you're going to find that this gets pretty repetitive, because I can have white with cheddar, white with Swiss. I can have wheat with cheddar, wheat with Swiss. Or I can have rye bread with cheddar or rye bread with Swiss. So on that one, maybe I make a note to myself, that is the type of cheese. Now we have one more factor, right? We have the type of meat, and we can call this step 4. The next part that we do is we're going to actually do exactly the same thing, but with all the different types of meat. So the types of meat is ham, turkey, roast beef. So here's what I'm going to do. Since I've already used, I'm just kind of thinking ahead, since I already used R for rye bread, I'll probably use RB for roast beef, okay? So, here we go. Under the cheddar, I can have white bread with cheddar cheese, and then on that I can have, now we're having 3 types of meat, right? I can have ham, I can have turkey, or I can have roast beef. So, then going to the next one. White bread, Swiss cheese, and see how now I'm already kind of cramping up here with my space. That's why I was talking, got to try to spread it out. White Swiss with ham, white Swiss with turkey, white Swiss with roast beef. Okay, now here we go. I have wheat with cheddar and either ham, turkey, or roast beef. Wheat with Swiss with either ham, turkey, or roast beef. I can have rye and cheddar with ham, turkey, or roast beef. And I can have rye with Swiss with either ham, turkey, or roast beef. Ta-da! That is a tree diagram. Okay? Now, we are not done, okay? We're done with all the work, but we have to label our answers here. Okay? So it says find the sample space. Find the sample space. So if you remember right, sample space was a set of all possible outcomes of a probability experiment. So here's what we've got. All right? We have white, I'm going to go right down this branch, with cheddar and ham. That's one sandwich. White, cheddar, and turkey. That's another sandwich. We have white, cheddar, and roast beef. That's another sandwich. Next one, we've got white. Don't skip it. We have Swiss here. We have white, Swiss, and ham. We have white, Swiss, and turkey. And we have white, Swiss, and roast beef. We're done with all our white bread. Those are all the sandwiches that you can choose if you have white bread. All right, here we go. It's exciting. Here we go. All right, so here we go. Let's keep going. It's very easy, but it's very repetitive. You just have to make sure you're careful. So here we go. Next one are all the wheat bread. So we're pretty much going to do the same thing. Now listen, if you take a look, you can kind of get smart about this, and if you look at it, I can actually copy everything down from here, but instead, of course, put WHE at the beginning. All right. So meaning that we have, because the way we built it was very consistent. So we have wheat, cheddar, and ham. Wheat, cheddar, and turkey. Wheat, cheddar, and roast beef. We have wheat, Swiss, and ham. Wheat, Swiss, and turkey. Wheat, Swiss, and roast beef. Ta-da! We're done with wheat. All right, last one. Here we go. And again, because we have everything the same here, I can go down here and just be strategic about it and just copy it all over it again, but with the R for rye bread. So here we go. Rye with cheddar and ham. Rye with cheddar and turkey. Rye with cheddar and roast beef. Rye with Swiss and ham. Bless you. Rye with Swiss and turkey. And rye with Swiss and roast beef.
Too much.
And ladies and gentlemen, that is our sample space. That's all of the different outcomes, the possible outcomes we have for building a sandwich with 3 different types of bread, 2 types of cheese, and 3 different types of meat. Okay, now, if you take a look, just kind of putting things in perspective, right? 6 on this side, 5 on this side. You have 11 problems. By the time you leave here, hopefully most of it's done. You shouldn't have much to do, all right? There's not very many problems at all, okay? So, it takes a while, but that's why you only have, 11 problems to do.
Can you do it on a separate piece of paper?
Yes, you can. You absolutely can. Okay, you can do it on a separate paper. Okay, guys, questions?
Quick question.
Okay, if we don't have any questions, here we go. I'm going to want you guys to try out. Same side. Problem number 1. You have 30 seconds. No, I'm joking. I'll check in with you guys in a couple minutes. All right, go. All right, guys, get started. Bless you. If you guys get done early, you can try out a couple of the other problems. Get going on your work. How many of you need more time? Okay. All right. I'll check in with you guys in about another 30 seconds to a minute there. Okay, how many of you still need a little more time? Okay, about 15 more seconds then, and then I'll have you guys share. Okay, turn to your partner and share. 30 seconds, go.
So I'm strawberry
Okay, here we go. So number one, all right, finding the sample space, choosing an ice cream cone with a waffle, plain, or sugar, and a flavor of ice cream from chocolate, vanilla, or strawberry. All right, so we have only two things here, right? We've got the cone and we have the ice cream. Okay, so the very first thing I'll do, maybe since they talked about it first, I will talk about the cone. All right, so I need my types. I'm here. I'm going to go ahead and write my different cones: waffle, plain, or sugar. So I'll go ahead and put W, space them out, P, and S. And so the next part, of course, the branches are coming off. Flavor of ice cream. We have 3 different flavors. So we have C for chocolate, V for vanilla, and we already have S for sugar. So maybe I'll put ST for strawberry. So here we go. With the waffle cone, I can have chocolate, vanilla, or ST for strawberry. And again, for the plain cone, chocolate, vanilla, or strawberry. And for the sugar cone, chocolate, vanilla, or strawberry. Okay, a little easier whenever you have only 2 different things, right? And so we didn't have to go that next step with our branches because there were only 2 different types. So I'm going to go ahead and write my sample space. So we have, I'll come over here. We have waffle with chocolate, waffle with vanilla, and waffle with strawberry. Okay? And then if I do it all over again, I just replace the P for the W for the plain cone. So plain and chocolate, plain and vanilla, plain and strawberry. And our last one was S for sugar cone. Sugar cone. So sugar with chocolate, sugar with vanilla, sugar with strawberry. 9 different possibilities. All right. Questions? Okay. Okay, so here's what I want to do next, all right? We have one more type of problem that will pop up on here. So let's go ahead and let's flip it over to the skills side. Okay, so let's take a look at number 1. Now, the directions, remember I said how important they are. The spinner at the right is spun twice. Twice. Okay? So, here is what that means, all right? It's a little different, okay, because we don't have 2 different types of bread or 2 different types, or, bread or cheese, or we don't have, cone and ice cream, right? So here's what we do. Okay, to draw a tree diagram, I think about the very first thing that I can spin on my first spin. What are all the different possibilities that I could spin?
CAB.
Yeah. CAB or ABC, order really doesn't matter. Okay, that's my first spin. Now, I've already spun. I can get an A, a B, or a C. Now, on my second spin, what can I get? A, B, C. You see that? So that means the first spin I spun an A, then the second spin I spun an A. Or I can spin an A and then a B. Or I can spin an A and then a C the second spin. So that's what that means. So on this one, okay, the first spin I spun a B. Then, of course, the second spin I can spin an A, B, or C. Just like the last branch. And on this tree diagram, I could spin a C. Then with my second spin, I can spin an A, B, or C. Okay? Now, says number 1 says draw a tree diagram to represent the situation. That's what we just did. We're done, right? There's only 2 spins. This was the first spin here. This was the second spin. Okay? Then number 2 says what's the probability of getting at least one A? Well, here's what we're going to do before we figure that out. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to write my sample space. All right? So I'm going to go ahead and list out. I can spin an A, then an A. I can spin an A and then a B. I can spin an A and then a C. Okay? The next, or I could, of course, and this is, of course, where it changes, right? The A is going to change with a B here. So B and an A B and then a B and then a C. Or, of course, the last one I can spin a C first, and then an A C, and then a B, or a C, and then a C. Now, going back to problem number 2, okay? What is the probability of getting at least one A? So here's what that's talking about, okay? This was like yesterday. At this point, it's very much like yesterday's assignment. What's the probability of spinning at least one A? So, at this point, remember, we write our ratio or our fraction. How many total possible outcomes are there?
6.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 9 total possible outcomes. So just like yesterday, that goes on the bottom. And now remember, a winner or a favorable outcome is spinning at least one A. Well, how many of these boxes have at least one A? It doesn't say exactly one A, it's at least. I mean, it could have more than an A, it could have 2 A's. So, here we go. Is there an A here?
Yes.
Yep. We all know that this one, that one, and that one all have A's, right? So 1, 2, 3. That one has an A. That's 4. That one has an A.
It's 5.
That's 5. Do these have A's?
No.
Nope. We have a 5
4.
ninths. 5 out of 9 chance. Okay, if we're going to, of course, convert it, 5 divided by 9, right, is, on the calculator it pops up as 5/10, but in bar notation because the 5's repeating. Remember, percentage sign, we have to move the decimal to the right twice. So we end up with 55.5%. And then the 5 is still repeating on the decimal part. So on this one, guys, the only difference, well, the spinner could be a little confusing. That's why I wanted to do it with you. But also, they're taking the next level and they're saying, okay, once you find the sample space, they're asking you about a probability. So it's a little bit of yesterday's lesson mixed in with today's. Okay. Any questions before I have you try one? All right. Here we go. I want you to flip back over to the extra practice side and try out problem number 6. Number 6. All right. I'll check in with you guys, and I'll check in with you in about a minute. All right. Go.
Mr. Wilkins, six. It says tossing a penny twice. Do we add both heads and both tails for both tosses?
Start with your first possibility. What can you flip on the first flip?
Heads or tails?
So those will be your 2 top. And then you'll branch from there for your second flip. Okay, how many of you need more time? Okay, I'll check in with you guys about another 30 seconds or so. Again, those of you that are done, work ahead. Start getting your work done. Okay, how many of you still need more time on that problem? All right, about 15 more seconds and then we'll share. Okay, here we go. I'm actually looking at the time. I have a couple things to tell you guys before you leave here, so I want to go over this with you guys. Let's take a look at number 6. All right, it says tossing a penny twice. All right, so they want to know not only the sample space, but they want us to find the probability. So here we go. You have a penny, and what can you flip with a penny, guys? Heads or tails, H or T. Okay, but you're going to flip it twice, so it's kind of like the spinner. So after you flip the heads, the second go around, you can flip a heads or tails. And after you flip a tails, you can flip a heads or tails. So our sample is a heads and then a heads again, a heads and then a tail then a heads, or a tail then a tails. Okay, and I want to just point out that even though these have HT and this has an HT, they're different because of the order that it was flipped. Okay, so how many possible outcomes, guys? 4. So 4 goes on the bottom. How many of them have 2 tails? 1. Favorable outcome, so it's 1/4. And hopefully for a lot of us, that is mental math. That's 0.25 or 25%. Okay, listen, I do want to say this really quickly. On number 5, okay, it's rolling 2 number cubes. Write this down, okay? You're going to still need to do the sample space, but I'm going to give you a little hint. There are 36 possible outcomes. You're going to need to use another piece of paper, okay? Now, here's another thing. Rolling doubles. What does that mean? The numbers are the same. So rolling a 1 and a 1, or rolling a 2 and a 2, rolling a 3 and a 3. Okay, those are doubles. Okay, so that's the favorable outcome. All right, guys.